Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you. And today we're going to be taking a look at not one, but two Asus Republic of Gamers Striker GTX760s. Now, this is quite a interesting little card for ROG because it's the cheapest kind of, I'm going to say low-end card that they've released. And by that, I don't mean that it's like a real cheap 50 quid card or anything like that, but I just mean that Republic of Gamers are famed for releasing, like the highest end of the spectrum. So you can expect like there to be like the 290X matrix and the 780 Ti matrix. That's generally Republic of Gamers' stomping ground. So essentially what they've done with the 760, which is going to be coming in around £225 at launch, but obviously we can probably expect prices to fall over the time, is they're introducing a card that's more accessible to more people. I know it's not a card that everyone is going to be able to afford, and there's a lot of things that you need to consider when you think about the pricing and stuff, but it is a step in the direction for ROG that, like I said, they're making it more accessible for more people. This kind of coupled with the Maximus Ranger board that they've just released, which is the cheapest Republic of Gamers board that they've released for a long time, and in the black and red theme as well, that's going to be around the £125 to £130 GBP price point. You can see that Asus are looking to bring out slightly better price products rather than just the extreme end of the spectrum, try and open things out to more people. Now this can only be a really good thing, but obviously with cheaper cards you might be thinking that they've cut costs and stuff like that, but I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with this. Also, it's got double the VRAM to a standard 760. It's been up from 2GB to 4GB, which a lot of people kind of scratch their heads about. Oh, we're not going to need that much. It's not going to be enough to run 4K games. Well, it's been quite surprising, even at 1080p, how much video memory that Watch Dogs, which has obviously just been released, has used, which we'll cover later on in the video. So don't write off that 4GB of VRAM just yet, and also listen to what I say about why more video memory could become needed very quickly in the not too distant future. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to move on. We're going to have a look at the card quickly in, just around the actual card itself. I'll then show you around the test system, and then we can move on to benchmarks and the like, with the conclusion, as always, at the end. Okay then peeps, so a quick close look at the card. Now, first things first that I thought when I saw this was the white heat pipe. I really liked the black heat pipes on the matrices, so it was a bit of a shame that this one turned out to be silver. I was hoping that was like kind of like a feature that they were going to carry through with other cards, but nevertheless, we've got the display panel here, which does change colours. I wish they would just having it so that we know what loads on is great, but it would also be great if we could just set that colour to red or to white or something as well. I say it with all the cards, so there's nothing new. Now, one other thing is we've got the two SLIs. Now, there's a lot of fixed SLI ports available now, and it does mean that you can only really use a single one. So that would mean that you'd have two cards between that, and because of this, even though it's a 760, the 2 does mean you can run 4 of these cards, and that's actually quite unique for a 760, but it does mean that if you did want to do that, you can't use the rigid bridges, and you would have to use flexible ones, and you can get some black flexible ones, but obviously the rigid ones just look a lot nicer and can even help support the card a bit as well. While we're around here, we can obviously see the nice back plate. It's a nice brushed aluminium design. You can see there's hexagons there. I do love the focus on this camera. Writing up the right way, which you'd be amazed how many people end up with it the wrong way around. There is a little bit in the PCB here. Now this actually does light up red, which I'll show you in a minute. And you can see the kind of LED pack, for want of a better term, just there. We've got an 8-pin and a 6-pin for power. You can see that the heatsink does come out around the outside. There's no enormous heatsinks poking out round the bottom, but I think it does look quite quite the part. And I know that £225 is an expensive amount for a 760, but you're not going to find a 760 that looks like this, 4GB of memory and all that kind of stuff. And believe it or not, we have found that the 4GB of memory does make a bit of a difference in some of the newer games as well. But anyway, let's move on and we'll see how this looks within its identical twin in our test rig. Okay then peeps, so let's have a look at them in the rig. This is obviously the graphics card test rig. I think people are getting tired of me saying about it now, but it's just a rig that I put together just to do the reviews with. So we pop the door off just quickly. And let's have a ganders. Now, if we zoom right in, you can see that they do work really well together. And obviously I've got the red braided cables and everything, but we'll just run through the spec. We've got a Rampage Extreme Black Edition with a 4960X at 4.4 GHz. We've got 16GB of 2400 MHz RAM. We have a Corsair H105 doing the cooling, then an AX1500i providing the power. We've got a 240GB Neutron GTX for the main operating system, and then we have a 240GB Force LS, which is taking care of the game, so like Steam, Unigine and Uplay, that's all on there. Yeah, we do have other little bits and bobs like the custom floor and the LEDs and the Asus front bay, and so yeah, and the cables are individually braided Corsair cables. So if I move the camera and we come in, we can see the little lit up bit of PCB. It's only small. I think it would be nice if they started moving that onto other designs, and even maybe having that without the backplate and having, you know, things scattered around. But obviously that's just for the designers to do. The backplate is very nice. It's a nice touch with a card of this caliber and this kind of price as well. It does make, you know, it can make a huge difference. I certainly prefer the look of a backplate to a plain PCB. The silver heat pipe, as I've already said, it would have been nice if that was black, like the bigger brothers from the Matrix range. And I think that would be nice with all graphics cards, to be honest. But with the ROG ones, I would very much like to see a black throughout, just to let you know what it looks like. That's what I meant about black throughout. Now, obviously, the other thing here, with them teamed up in a pair like this, and this is one of the reasons why we've done it, is, to be honest with you, for the less educated amongst us, or with a quick look or something like that, a black and red Asus card like this instantly makes you think about a lot of money. And it also, with a pair of them like this, you could be talking £800 to £1,200 worth of graphics cards here, whereas in reality it's, you know, less than half that. It's like 450 quid. Okay, maybe not less than half of 800, but you get what I'm saying. And that's the thing that I really like about these, is that you can chuck a pair of them in together and they look a lot more expensive than they are. And that's part of the reason why we're here to test them today as well, so that we can generally see whether the looks can kind of be backed up with some form of good value performance as well. Anyway, that's them in a nice, I would say, in a nice bench rig, or a nice custom rig. I think they do look the part in there. Handily with the bench rig, all the colours kind of match as well, because it can be difficult for us to, you know, change the colours and everything every time. But these ROG cards really do, you know, tie in really nicely with this rig. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to take a quick look at some benchmarks and just look at some gameplay. We're going to talk about video RAM with Watch Dogs as well, because I do have the Watch Dogs, sorry, I was going to say the Watch Dogs benchmark, but I have got Watch Dogs for us to take a ganders at. Yes, so I'm going to break down, because I don't want to, I'm already rattling on anyway. So we'll take a look at some benchmarks and stuff, and we'll move on. Okay, so Firestrike Extreme. As you can see there, you can see the result, 5,371. But if I flick it over onto the graph quickly, Now this is sorted. It says sorted by Firestrike, but it's actually, we've highlighted CloudGate, but it is sorted by Firestrike. We just used the bigger red one. Now on the graph, as you can see, we have two results. The 5,371 is the SLI result, and then if you look further down, we've still done the single card results as well. And that's going to be the same throughout all of the testing. So if you want to click on the link to follow through to the website to have a look at all the graphs for the reviews, then you can get all of this information throughout. So you've got your £225 option. You can see how well that does with other cards like the 760s, the 770s, and even some of the AMD cards. Or you've got the top of the graph, which is where the SLI is pretty much in the the top quarter. But anyway, you can see it does pretty well there. One thing that you can see there is it's around the sort of performance of the Asus 760 Mars overclock, which is, we run these cards at just stock. But you can also see that the Striker SLI is above the performance of the Asus 290X, which is a pretty good score. But it's up there with the 780s, and if you have a look, it's above a reference NVIDIA 780 Ti, which is a pretty good shout. Moving on to 3D Mark Vantage, we've got the X score, which is 33,837. People keep asking me, well, I keep running this benchmark and I've not moved on to other stuff. Well, I have moved on to other stuff, but this is actually still a very, very good benchmark for graphics cards. It's actually very strenuous, and especially when you get to overclocks, it can be the benchmark out of all of them that will fall over. So if your cards are doing well in this, then they're doing well in general. So now a 33,837 score, if we ping the graph up, you can see is very, very good. This is a beastie graph, but as you can see here, it's actually done really well, again above the 780 Ti, but it's actually above the 780 Ti overclock with Vantage. That's probably got a fair bit to do with video memory and stuff. But you can see that the SLI here has done very, very well. There's only 7990 and a 690 SLI above it. I mean, there's the Asus 780 Ti Matrix is below it, the palettes below it. There's some, some very good scores. Down the other end of the graph, we've got the single striker. Now you can see there that it's just behind the reference 760 overclock. Now that's a very good thing to put. It's above the reference one, it's above the stock reference one, but just below the overclock. So it's still putting in some brilliant scores there. Right, Watch Dogs. So we've got, what we've done here is we've used GPU-Z to record, and you can see down by the red things that we've got maximums up. Now, for some strange reason, I missed the maximum on the fan speed, but anyway, what you can see there is a lot of people will shout and go, oh yes, we don't need all that video memory. Well, Watch Dogs is one of the games that you're probably going to be surprised it will. Now, this is one of the things that's been coming in with the consoles, and it's where console ports may actually start to stress PCs out a little bit more. And that's because of the unified memory architecture, where it doesn't have a video memory, it just kind of uses all of the memory. It means there's a lot more memory available for the game developers to use. Now this with a video card is a bit different, because if you've only got like 3 GB and a video card, and you might have, I don't know what the consoles are running, but I'm assuming they've got like 6 or 8 or whatever it works out at, that it means that the video cards could end up needing a lot more memory than usual. And as you can see, this is used 3.5 gig. So just to put this into context, now this could apply to your 780 Ti, or it could also apply to your 290 290X. Once it gets up to that 3 GB bit, where it's going to be using all of your video memory, your frames per second are going to plummet. And by plummet, I mean it will look like it's running like a bag of poo, but it's actually because you've used all of your video card memory. So although this is only a 760, if you're going to be playing Watch Dogs, that 4 GB is really going to help you. Now if I bring the graph up, as you can see, the frames per second are pretty good. We've done both 1080 and 1440p results. But the most important thing here, and we've obviously done single card and SLI, and the most important thing here is if you have a look, 1080p single card, you're looking at 50 frames a second, 70 frames a second for SLI. So you've got a lot of frames per second there. Now, I've been hearing horror stories about Watch Dogs, about people saying that it runs like a bag of poo and this rig's not running it, that rig's not running it. I'd almost put money on, with these results, saying it's because those people have run out of video memory. So it may actually mean that long term, those people are going to be buying 4 gig cards, 6 gig cards, because there's obviously the new 780s that are coming out with 6 gig. I think we are actually going to be, this is the start of the trend where video memory is really going to be getting abused. Okay then peeps, you've made it to the conclusion. So what we will do is we talk about the awards. Now obviously we've done SLI, but we also tested single card as well, because although SLI, obviously the way it looks and the performance and stuff is an immense sweet spot, we're obviously fully aware that more people are probably going to buy these as an individual, so we run individual ones as well. So the award for an individual card is Gamer's Choice, and then the award for the pair is gold. Now you may wonder why the two awards are different, so we'll kind of explain that. Now the single card is where things are complicated really, because obviously you've got the 4 GB of VRAM, these are all positive points. So you've got the 4 GB of VRAM, you've got the ROG looks, it's a really nice backplate, it's cool, and by cool I mean it's cooler than the reference one, which is quite a good thing, and it was as quiet as well. You've got the backplate, the lights, it ticks all of the right boxes, and obviously like I said, you've got that double VRAM. Where it gets confusing is the point when people start saying, oh, well, for that money, I could have bought a basic 770. And then that is true. And then all of the points that I've just said as positives are kind of flipped on their head, and you would have to compromise on them. Because if you got a cheap 770, then you'd be, you probably wouldn't have a very good cooler, it wouldn't have the backplate, it's probably not going to look great because it won't be a reference one, it's going to be one of the third-party ones with like a plastic cooler or something. I'd hazard a guess that it wouldn't even end up running that quiet. Obviously you can do your research, but the critical thing is, if you go up to that 770, you are going to lose that VRAM. So most of the cards around that price point are going to be about 3 GB, unless you find some random one where they've not put as much on. Now, with most games, you're probably going to be alright, but as we've shown with Watch Dogs, 3 GB of VRAM technically isn't enough, which is why a lot of people on the webs at the moment are shouting and saying that Watch Dogs is a resource hog and it doesn't do this, and my 680 isn't playing it that well. Well, essentially what's happening with those people is the fact that it's getting up to, and it's using all of the video memory, and then your frames per second will drop because it's having to buffer frames. And that's literally the way it is. So the 760 it performs so well because it's got more than enough video memory. Now I kind of predict that as things progress, that extra video memory is going to be needed a lot more, because of the way that the consoles now have got kind of like, they don't have a dedicated video memory, they just use everything. And that's the easy way to explain it. But hopefully that will mean that as things go forward, they will have to, it will make things more difficult for a PC to play what could be a relatively simple console port. So rather than the days of old where Call of Duty would play on a flipping wristwatch at 60 frames per second, the console ports now could actually be a lot more demanding on PCs, which may sound like a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing, because it will mean that PC hardware has to progress a lot more rather than dragging its heels and we don't really mind because the Xbox One and the PS4 are shit. Which, to be fair, they are, because I'm not a console gamer. So we've got that side of things. So you do have with a single card, you do have to weigh up certain things. If you're not really interested in the video memory, then you might be better off going elsewhere. But obviously, if you do spend the same sort of money on what would be a quicker card, you are going to be making sacrifices in other places. And this obviously is probably one of the best looking and best performing 760s that are out there. So you've got that choice. But when you pair the two, get two as twins and pair them together, that's where things just instantly change. Because then you're talking that the pair of cards jump to the top of the graphs. Now, the Matrix 780 Ti, as we've got here, it does look very similar. It's only really that black heat pipe that it really, other than the size, to the untrained eye wouldn't really notice a difference. At the end of the day, you can tell it's a black and red Republic of Gamers card. And when you chuck it in there, like I said, it's, you know, most people are not really going to know. Are probably going to end up asking, "What are you running?" A bit like the days when you open your bonnet and you're like, "Ooh." So you've got that, and the thing is the pair of these, 450 quid. We're trading blows and up there at the top of the graph with £600 cards. I need to remember to put it in the middle more. They were up there and trading blows with £600 cards. It was consistently up there with the 780 Tis. There was times when it was above the reference 780 Ti. And something else to consider as well, because I didn't want to be running endless tests. These were run at stock, and they were quicker in a lot of them than a 780 Ti stock. So if you were to massage the overclocks on these, you could make them even quicker, and the NVIDIA cards do, they really enjoy a little bit of overclocking, and you can make some pretty big gains on your benchmarks. At least frames per second's got a little bit of a slower performance curve when you do it, but you can make some changes. And also with these, I'd say, with there's so much video memory, you probably be you do really well if you're going to be running like a 2560 by 1440 resolution to play with the memory clocks on it as well. Just remember, don't go stupid and push them too far too soon, because memory is the one thing with all graphics cards that you can kill quite easily, and I'm talking from experience. So when you team a pair of these up, like I said, you're getting, you know, around the kind of £600 card performance for about 150 quid cheaper. And another positive point as well is in SLI, they were running the same sort of temperatures that a single standard 760 would have been as well, yet they were still quieter. So even with two of them in a system like this, and it's not a particularly like stupidly set up, you know, overly airflow system or anything like that, it did really well. We've only really got, you know, a basic case layout here. There's nothing, you know, it's not an open air test bench. We weren't forcing air in with, you know, direct fans or anything. It's just as you would run a similar type of system at home. Yeah, we've got plenty of room to breathe over here, but if anything, that pushes the fans a little bit further away. So, you know, it did really well there. And also, let's face it, when you get two of them in like this, I personally think they look better. Yes, if you've got an M80X rig, you probably would be better off getting a single big card because of, you know, they're all going to be sandwiched together. But if your motherboard's got the layout that you can still have that slot or two between, then I don't really see why you wouldn't want to, you know, maybe think about going down this road. Orca's got a couple of cards in. I actually, you know, I don't need the power, but I like the way it looks. With this, you can not only save a bit of money, get the looks, and you get the performance as well. It's a win-win situation, and that's why we went differently with the awards, because once you kind of up the amount that you've possibly got to spend, it goes from being a questionable situation to, hang on a minute, you can actually save a bit of money here and have the same, if not slightly better performance as well. So the SLI, absolutely brilliant. I really like these actually. It's one of those ones where they're cheap, so if you just want the one, then brilliant. But if you want to, you know, take a bit of a punt and bang a couple of them in there. And another thing to remember as well is technically these two have got more video memory than your 780 Ti would, because that's obviously a 3GB card. These are 4GB cards, so you're going to be getting 780 Ti performance. And I know you're thinking, oh, it's 8 because there's 2, but you only really get this 4GB per core. So you've only really got 4GB of usable video RAM memory. You can't double it. So technically, that's another place where these can start to pull in front, is because they've got that little bit more video memory. But I would say that they're probably going to perform really well if you do play with those memory clocks a little bit. It would be something I would have liked to have spent more time on if I didn't have piles of motherboards and impending Intel deliveries. But anyway, don't forget to click on the link to go to the Overclock 3D website, where you can see all of the graphs and you can, you know, see everything in, you know, and compare everything essentially. And then also you can see for the first time in a long time that we've got one of the cards at the top of the graph, or two of the cards at the top of the graph, and then the single one down near the bottom. So you can see a nice range there to help you work out whether it could be the type of thing that you might be wanting to spend your hard-earned on. But that's enough from me. I'm not going to take up any more of your pleasurable, yes, pleasurable, I can't get my words out today. What's the word I'm looking for? Not pleasurable. Valuable. We'll use valuable. That'll do. Any more of your valuable time. This is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Out.